back to my channel. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Daniel. I'll be your host. Your guy in the wheelchair.
Guy in the chair.
He said it.
And today, since it's Thursday, we're gonna be hearing the crictical-drinker's thoughts on Bob Chapek leaving Disney. So enjoy the video.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. And truly, no company exemplifies this seemingly nonsensical proverb quite like Disney, whose creative and financial decisions over the past 5 years or so remind me of a fading pop star making increasingly ridiculous attempts to reinvent themselves without understanding why people are losing interest in the first place. Case in point, the retirement of Bob Iger as head of the company back in 2020 after 15 years in the role, during which he basically made it his mission to swallow up every studio and IP on the market. Because if you can't come up with good ideas of your own, just buy someone else's. Lucasfilm, Pixar, Marvel, 20th Century Fox, all of them were assimilated into the Disney collective. They were a bit like the Borg from Star Trek, only more sinister and less creative. His approach might have been ruthless and relentless conglomeration, but fuck me, it was undeniably effective. The MCU under Disney's influence became a box office juggernaut. Pixar began churning out a steady stream of financial hits, and Lucasfilm, well, they were there. Anyway, the point is the company exploded into some kind of Lovecraftian monster under his leadership, with its slimy tendrils extending into practically every major entertainment property in Hollywood. But this golden age could not last, and gradually it became obvious that something was rotten in the state of Disney. Along with the massive increase in revenue came an influx of soulless parasites. People with, shall we say, a very specific political worldview. People who saw the films and TV shows they were tasked with producing less as creative endeavours and more as conveniently large platforms from which to shout the message. And well, these people soon began to make their mark on the company, and believe me, it wasn't a pretty one. Star Wars, under the not-so-wise stewardship of Kathleen Kennedy, quickly went from one of the most popular, recognisable and profitable brands in the world to a rotting shell of its former self, with diminishing box office returns, a horribly divided fan base, and seemingly constant drama and conflict behind the scenes. Even the once mighty MCU began to creak and shudder as more and more identity politics wrenches were thrown into its perfectly tuned machinery. And Bob Iger didn't just sit back and allow this shit to happen, he practically encouraged it. Why? Simple, because it made him look good. It allowed the media to write lots of flattering puff-piece articles about how he was championing diversity, opening up opportunities, elevating marginalised voices, and all the usual buzzword bullshit you expect these days. But old Bob was no fool. He was smart enough to see that problems were on the horizon and that it was time for him to get out. The problems that he'd allowed to fester and worsen during his tenure were coming to a head by the end of the 2010s, and when the unspecified virus of unknown origin came along to shut down the company's one remaining source of revenue, the theme parks, he wisely decided to get the fuck out of Dodge and let someone else pick up the pieces for him. And in this case, the chosen fall guy was Bob Chapek. Unlike his predecessor, Chapek wasn't particularly interested in his public image. He wasn't interested in pandering to identity politics for some cheap hollow media praise, or pushing the message just to keep the blue-haired land whales on Twitter happy. I mean, don't get me wrong, he certainly wasn't some selfless martyr willingly throwing himself under the bus for the good of the company either. But what he actually was a money man. The kind of guy who looks at the bottom line when it comes to making creative decisions. He was there to turn Disney around, to make it profitable again, and his chosen path towards that goal was political neutrality. There would be no more thinly veiled activism, no more weighing in on divisive political issues, no more pandering to the message. I know, it sounds crazy, right? Imagine an entertainment company that just wants to produce entertainment instead of lecturing you about historical injustices and why you should feel guilty for existing, telling you how you should feel on socio-political issues, advocating for which political candidates you should support. Chapek also restructured the company's executive positions so that the studio heads and senior managers were actually expected to perform to a good standard. There would be no more cushy 5-year contracts where you could just sit back and collect collect a paycheck, regardless of how shit your work was. The message was clear: if you don't deliver results, then you're out the fucking door, son. Now, as you can imagine, this change of strategy didn't go down too well with certain elements of Disney's staff, who immediately went to war with Chapek. An attempt to stay neutral on a political bill in Florida that had absolutely nothing to do with Disney resulted in mass staff walkouts, social media outrage, and a humiliating climb down for Chapek, where he was forced to make a grovelling video pledging his allegiance to the cults. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the face of a man held hostage by his own employees. Still, he was determined to see his plan through, and a 3-year contract extension in June 2022 seemed to indicate that the Disney board were prepared to back him all the way. It's funny how ideology takes a back seat when your own arse is on the line, isn't it? Now, a big part of Chapek's plan to return the company to profitability was to make it leaner and more efficient, and that meant layoffs. Lots of layoffs. Because like any big company, Disney had become bloated and inefficient, filled with people occupying pointless roles, making an awful lot of noise but doing very little actual work. And if I was a cynical man, I'd be willing to bet that a lot of the staff targeted for redundancy just so happened to be the loudest and most obnoxious activists who'd caused him so much trouble in Florida. If they were a cancer growing within the company, then Chapek was the surgeon sharpening his scalpel. But truly, life's got a funny way of turning things around, and wouldn't you know it, suddenly the announcement was made last night that Chapek was out and Bob Iger was returning as CEO of Disney.
No way!
Oh my goodness, who could have seen this one coming? I mean, a decision like that couldn't possibly have come at a better time for all those employees, activists, executives, and studio heads that Chapek had in his crosshairs. And if you think for 1 second that this decision was a mutual one, then bless your heart, you sweet summer childs. There is no way on this green earth that Chapek would have willingly stepped down when he was right on the verge of putting his plan into action. And there's also no way the board of directors would have broken his contract, incurring massive financial penalties unless some pretty powerful people convinced them that they had to do it. And so, here we find ourselves right back where we started. If you think Bob Iger's here to fix things and get Disney back on track after years of mistakes, well, I got some bad news for you, my friend. He isn't, and he won't. He's the guy who created these fucking problems in the first place, so you'll forgive me if I'm a little dubious about his ability or even his motivation to solve them. What he is a safe bet, a return to the status quo, a guy who won't rock the corporate boat or ask difficult questions or raise the dangerous thought that maybe, just maybe, people aren't buying what they're selling. Because what they're selling is shit. What all this comes down to is the desperation of a company trapped in a prison of its own making, afraid of its own employees, afraid of its shareholders, afraid of social media blowback, afraid of journalists ready to pounce on any sign of weakness, and afraid of activists ready and willing to destroy anyone who doesn't toe the line. Just ask Bob Chapek. So no, I don't expect that Bob Iger is some kind of messiah that's returned in Disney's hour of need to rescue the company. In fact, unless he's had a complete change of personality and worldview, I think his return is only going to accelerate the company's inevitable decline. Even worse, it's going to embolden the worst elements within the organization, reassuring them that their future's secure and nobody is ever going to challenge them again. So if you think the stuff they're putting out right now is bad, well, just wait until you see what's coming over the next few years. But hey, it's going to be fun to kick back with a beer and laugh at their fucking failure. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go
Hey guys, I hope y'all enjoyed that. Listening to the critical drinker's thoughts of Bob Chapek leaving and Bob Iger is back. But if you liked it, don't forget, get that. Comment down below. I want to know what your thoughts are. And then subscribe for more and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post a new video. And share.